Welcome into this brand new episode of Rip and Rock. I'm Rocco DeSangro of Fox 45. He is former professional baseball player Ryan Ripken. You really need no introduction, I guess, in this city, but I'm going to give you one anyway, just because there are people out there who don't know you, maybe don't care about you, but I do. I do care about you. Fantastic way to start the show. We do like each other, of course. A lot to talk about on this episode, first and foremost, and if you want to follow along while we're doing this, I know you're going to get the episode, maybe not live, but you can follow him at Ryan Ripken on social media, and you can follow me at Rocco DeSangro on X. You want to talk about it, address the elephant in the room, Rip? And the elephant in the room is that the Orioles regular season series of being not swept. It's hard to word. Regular season non-sweepless streak. Say that 5 times fast. 106 games now comes to an end.
Yeah, I know you used a lot of that good verbiage to describe how you felt about me and that no one knows me. Well, guess what? Who cares about me? Who cares about you? But what does matter right now is the storyline at the moment. And that is the Baltimore Orioles were swept for the first time since May of 2022. Everyone talks about when Adley Rutschman was called up. That was the signal of this movement for the Orioles, and now they finally are swept in St. Louis. And then obviously there's another part of it with the series with John Means news coming out there that we'll talk about there. We'll preview the White Sox series, but let's go back to that because this is the big storyline at the moment. The Orioles drop all 3 in St. Louis. Weird series in general, Rock. Yeah. Overall, weather was no bueno all the way around. The Orioles and the Cardinals had game 2 suspended, and then it was 4 innings of baseball, 3.5 innings of baseball, whatever you want to consider it. Cardinals pull away and win that game. The Orioles felt like they were in the driver's seat the majority of the second game. Rain delay, things kind of fall off. Defense was not on point in that part. And then finally, in that 9th inning, Newt Barr makes an unbelievable play. Cedric was trying to be a little bit too aggressive. We'll dive into that play in the future here. Yeah, I put my hands out here, Rocco. You can't reach that far, buddy.
Yes, I can.
It's okay.
I could,
I was going to say we can help you with a lot of things. Height is not one of them. But overall, Rock, so let's look at this from this perspective. It just from the jump, maybe it was because the Orioles came off a successful homestand, I would like to say. They come on the road, and whether it was the weather that took the air out of their sails, but whatever it was, nothing fully came together. Game 1 wasn't pretty. They could have won the last 2, but something they've done so well was figuring out ways to win. In this case, it felt like they found ways to lose.
Yeah, absolutely. It was just, like you said, a weird series. You had the 2 rain delays. You had a game that was postponed to the next day, and then you had a rain delay in this one as well. So just crazy things happening. And it all goes back to, okay, looking at the series as a whole, I feel like the, biggest symbol or best symbol of what this series kind of encapsulated was that play where the Orioles had the lead. And it was 3 runs scored on a play they shouldn't have scored on. It was the last run scored on, I think it was a throwing error by, was it McCann who threw down? Yep. Yeah, McCann who threw down, got away, and then the runner was able to score. So just you look at it, and then the catch that Newt Barr made, Cedric Mullins gets doubled off in the 9th inning. Mistakes, but just mistakes that usually don't necessarily happen. And it just looked like the Orioles, not necessarily, they were outplayed by the Cardinals in the series, but a lot of those mistakes were self-inflicted, were they not? Yeah,
and I would think overall, let's talk about the defensive plays. Those are the ones that to me sting more, because that's a way, when you're talking about self-inflicted wounds, that's the part of the game. Pitching, defense, if you do that, those 2 things well enough, you stay in a lot of games. If the Orioles did that a little bit better, specifically on the defensive part, it's a different ball game for sure. And on that last play for Cedric, that one to me doesn't bother me as much as the others, just because he was trying to be aggressive. He was thinking, I got to score if that ball's down. And Stowers scorched it right on the barrel. And how about Stowers having some great at-bats? Maybe he's going to earn some opportunities. Maybe. But in that case, Newt Barr makes a great play. Now, the one thing for Cedric, if he could do it over again, is maybe him trying to have his momentum, because there was no outs, his momentum almost picking up full speed as he's going around second base, instead of, he was already had his mind made up, this ball's going to drop, I'm going to be past second base. And once he did that, he was in no man's land, didn't have a chance to get back. So that would be my only thing of advice for anyone that's watching. it's such a bang play too. So when we're dissecting it right now, Rock, it's not like, well, what the heck was he thinking? It was split second. Cedric's usually right with these things. We're usually right on top of it. With this one, Newt Barr throws his glove up, makes a play. Cedric was a little bit over aggressive, and it took the air right out of the sails. Because if that ball, if Cedric's not doubled off, still man on first, gunner coming up, and the tying run is at first when he runs the plate. It's a way different perspective, but things like that seem to be more magnified, especially in a close game where you had a chance to win.
Well, I feel like I'm going to give the fan perspective here, and I feel like if Cedric Mullins, that's a ball that you have to know in that situation is going to fall. Like, there can't even be a slim chance that he catches the ball because we know Cedric Mullins has the speed. We know Cedric Mullins, what his mindset was there. It's like, if this ball drops, I'm scoring.
Right.
Game's tied. Perfect. But it didn't. And Lars Nootbaar made a great catch, and we've seen Cedric make catches like that. The probability of catching that ball, it was probably very low. I don't know what the percentage was or what it would be, but that was a ball that just looked, I thought it had a chance to leave the yard because Stowers got such a good swing on it, and it popped. And then you saw it kind of die down. It looked like it was losing a little bit of its flight, and all right, maybe it goes off the wall. That's what I was thinking just watching the game and seeing it come off Stowers' bat, but it just wasn't the case. And I mean, in a situation like that, what was it? That was one out, so it was no outs.
There was no outs.
Runners on first and third. Yeah, you had Hayes on third. You had Mullins on first. You gotta know that ball is going to drop. And
and that's the thing that you're saying. It's a good point because if there's one out there, and you're saying, well, we don't know if we're going to get another opportunity. Granted, you got to realize who's up next, and that's if Gunner's going to get a chance or the top of your order up, you want to give them a chance. So you're exactly right, and that's something that Cedric has to know. But one out, and you're going to be super aggressive because you're thinking, okay, I'm just saying on the worst case here. This is. I'll give my what I think should have happened. If with one out, you could be aggressive if you really thought it was going to drop. I can live with that. But again, my philosophy is you just got to try to time it up. That ball, especially the ball's in front of him. So Cedric's running, and he can almost get into a jog like you're building yourself up on a sprint. I know you don't like to sprint anymore, Rock, but it's like if you were building yourself up on a sprint and you're watching the play happen, as soon as you see the ball drop over his head, your foot is coming down on second and you are 100% going to third. Worst case, it's second and third, two or no outs, or in this case, no outs, and you're giving the top of your order a chance. That is the problem, I think, that fans, which I understand. It's something that Cedric feels bad about, no doubt about it. And again, it's these little things right now. We're talking about the little things of the game. Yeah. And it's the moments. The defensive errors, the one inning, and this specific in the ninth.
Did Cedric's mistake base running cost him the game? No, because you don't know what happens there. But it's the what if factor. A lot went wrong in that game. A lot went wrong in this series. I think Orioles fans are just happy this series is over. Obviously, I don't know how many people out there actually wanted to see the streak end, but you know what? There might be people that are on the fence about it. Like, okay, maybe we viewed this as a distraction. Maybe the team was thinking about it too much. Maybe along those lines of like, just get it done and over with. It's done now. Now we can focus on the rest of the season because 162 game season, man, there's a lot of baseball left to be played. What the Orioles did, it is so hard to do. They accomplished it. They did a great job of doing so. I think fans here in Baltimore are going to remember it for a long time, like this team, what they were able to accomplish. But their goal is not to, okay, let's just not get swept in a series. Obviously, they don't want to do that. It's to win a World Series. It's to win a World Series, not to not get swept in a series because there's so much baseball to be played.
Yeah, and this is the thing is a lot of teams go through struggles. I mean, teams that go on to win the World Series, and this is the context of it. Yeah, you want the Orioles to continue to win games. You want them to keep up with the Yankees, but the Yankees were on a hot streak. They won 7 in a row, I think it was before. Then they dropped the last 2 with the number 1 bullpen, by the way, with the Yankees, where they imploded in the 2 games against Seattle. But you just got to ride the wave. But you're looking at last year. Rangers looked really good. They were struggling down the stretch, trying to make the playoffs. It was that 3-team race between the Mariners, the Astros, and the Rangers. Rangers and Astros end up getting in. Rangers going to win the World Series. You can go back then years. The Nationals was one of the worst starts a team could have, but they snuck into the wild card going to win the World Series back in 19. So the point is, you don't need to be playing your best baseball right now. For the Orioles, honestly, Rock, I think it's kind of a relief now. Every time that the Orioles lose 2 games, it goes back to that notion of, well, they haven't been swept in so long here. I think for them, it's, hey, it's over now. It's done. It doesn't feel good. You don't want to lose the game, but it's no longer to be talked about. If there's one thing for players, they won't admit to it. Like they're going to say, it doesn't bother us. But when someone keeps talking about the same thing over and over and over again, it sits in the back of your mind subconsciously, whether you think it is or not. So they got to wash it. Hey, I'll tell you what, St. Louis needed the games. We talked about it. They were not very good at home this year. They needed those 3 games that hopefully for them jumpstarts their season because they have some talented players. They still got a long way to go. It's disappointing for Baltimore, but just one you just got to, have some adult beverages and move on to the next day.
I believe, I could be wrong, but just looking at the schedule and whatnot, I think that's the first sweep for the Cardinals this season, and it happens to come against the team that doesn't get swept in the regular season. So that adds a little bit more insult to injury. But you talked about the Rangers. You talk about teams that have struggled, or you know what? I'm not saying the Orioles are struggling right now. They did drop 3 straight. We haven't seen that in 2 years.
Right.
They've been able to be successful. And it's like, okay, you might get 2 from us. We're going to take that last one. Or you might get 1 here from us, but we're going to win the series. Or we might go out and sweep you. That's just how the Orioles have been so successful. But looking at the Texas Rangers last season, man, a team, the Orioles don't necessarily want to replicate because they want to be their own team. But this is a team that won the World Series last season. This is a team that caught fire at the right time. I don't want to say caught lightning in a bottle because they had the pitching.
Yep.
They had the offensive talent. They suffered through a few injuries, and they were still able to get it done at the end of the day and win the World Series. That's every team's goal. But there was a stretch in mid-August to late August where they lost 8 in a row. They lost 1 to the Angels, they lost 3 to Milwaukee, 2 to Arizona, and then they lost 2 to Minnesota. So they got swept by 2 teams, and then I think they lost 1 series in that span as well. And in that stretch, Rip, they lost 9 of 10.
Mm-hmm.
They lost 9 of 10. Listen, we know how baseball fans react. We know a lot of the times it's a knee-jerk reaction. Sometimes it is justified.
Yep.
And you know what? You're allowed to have your opinions. You're allowed to be ticked off.
For sure.
You're allowed to feel some type of way that the Orioles got swept. I will say this. I don't believe the sky is falling. I do believe that the Orioles are going to get back on the winning track, and they're going to figure out ways to win big series coming up. This team in no way, shape, or form should be in panic mode. This fan base in no way, shape, or form at this point in time should be in panic mode. Listen, if it's later on in the second half and the Orioles are dropping, they're swept in a series to a bad team and they're in a hunt and they need these games, okay, we can have that conversation. But right now, going forward, I don't want to say, tell you everything's all right for the fan base, because that's not what they want to hear. They just want to hear, whatever. I'm ticked off. I want to be mad at this right now.
Yeah,
feel free to be mad. It's understandable.
Feel free to be mad.
I get it.
And I will feel free to say the O's are still fine. And to give the last context, go ahead.
I was just going to say, but when you wake up tomorrow or today, when they play the White Sox, when they go to Chicago for that 4-game series, it's a new day. And you know what? Chicago right now, they're bad. Yep. They are bad at baseball right now. So this is a series you can capitalize on, maybe turn around and sweep them and begin another streak. How about that?
That's the goal. That's what you want. Here's the final context here, though. We're talking about teams, good teams in baseball, and we'll move on to the John Means conversation there. Right now, the Orioles have lost 4 of 6 now. Or sorry, they're in the last 10 games, we're looking at teams so far, and I know you're wounded right now. It's okay.
I have like a kind of a Kurt Schilling happening right now with he had the bloody sock. I have like scab on my elbow, and I don't want to show people on camera, but it's got little droplets of blood right now. Might have to go to the ER.
You picked the scab.
I didn't pick it. I rolled my sleeve up.
You rolled your sleeve and showed me
against it.
Okay.
I didn't Okay, continue.
I've talked off air. We've already heard about the scab 3 times. Now we've heard about it twice on air. Let me finish my point. Last 10 games that these teams have faced, the Orioles have they're 4-6 in their last 10. Okay, let's go down this list. The Twins over 500. They're 3-7 over that last 10 games. The Rangers 2-8 over that span. Let's flip to the National League side. The Atlanta Braves. People think they're one of the best teams, and they are 27-18. They're 4-6 over their last 10. The Brewers leading the NL Central 5-5. Cubs, a game and a half back, 27-22, 4-6 in their last 10. The Dodgers, 6-4 in their last 10, leading the NL West. And the NL West, there's no other team over 500 in that division. But you're getting my point here. And actually now with the Cardinals winning, they're now 8-2 in their last 10. So maybe this is the jump start that they finally needed. But the context here, teams are going to go through struggles. The goal is, can you get yourself out of that rut? For the Orioles and for the Oriole fans, you've had the blessing over the last year and a half, 2 years, whatever it's been, of the Orioles really minimizing that damage. Now we're going to see if they can stop it as they move forward to Chicago. But before we go to Chicago, we need to talk about John Means, because there was a report that just came out, Rock, that Means was going to leave that game today before the rain delay, not because of the weather, but because of an injury concern.
Yeah, so Steve Molesky of Masson, he had tweeted out, and while we were recording this, so we just caught it, that John Means is dealing with elbow discomfort and getting testing done. And for a guy that has had the injury history over the years, I mean, you just hate to see it. It's like he cannot catch a break. And when John Means is on, he's pitching well, he's firing. It's like this fan base, us as well, I mean, we want so badly for John Means to stay healthy and remain healthy because the guy's talented when he's out there on the mound. The problem is he's struggled to stay healthy over the years. He can't control that, though. It sucks. You know what? It's like he cannot control, elbow discomfort or elbow injuries or getting Tommy John or having to deal with, the UCL tear and whatnot. It sucks, man. Injuries happen. Unfortunately, they stink. And we're hoping for the best for John Means. With that being said, Rip, we're recording this episode on a Wednesday. It could come out tomorrow. Okay, John Means is good to go. You know what? Move on. We're good. Means will be good for his next start. No worries at all. But there is also a case that is not what's going to happen as well. Okay, we're going to play the hypothetical game here. I know you love playing the hypothetical.
Love it.
If John Means has to go on any sort of IL and, 15-day, whatever, what do you see happening with the rotation? Do you see it being, okay, Cole Irvin, you're up to the plate again?
Yeah.
Or, up to the mound, obviously, but you know what I was getting there.
Yeah, is it your turn back in the rotation?
Exactly.
Look, and this is why also for the Orioles, and everyone's talked about it, but you can never have enough starting pitching because you don't know. And especially when two of your starters this year, Bradish just came back and Means came back just before, or, right at the same time. Sorry, I guess they technically came back right at the same time, but that's the concern here, is that both of them, specifically John, has had trouble staying healthy over the last couple of years. And again, I feel for John because I know how much he works. I know how hard it is coming back from an injury. And it stinks because when he's on, you see it. You see how good he is. But here's the point. Here's the reality. He had the discomfort last year in the playoffs, kept him off the playoff roster. He's set back for spring training. And now you're at a point where you're going to see what happens. But this is why you have a guy like Cole Irvin. Albert Suarez has been a great story. So I do think one of those guys is going to be thrusted back into the rotation. And now then it's going to beg the question of, if Means is out, if you want to play the what if, would a guy like Cade Povich get a chance in the minor leagues? Lefty, the profile of needing another lefty arm, maybe that makes sense, right? But I think it really does just depend on the diagnosis of what happens with John. And we might find that out in the next 24 hours. We might have it found out by the time this is released, right?
Yeah.
So that is the point right here. But when you're looking at the options, the Orioles have them. And this isn't something that they're going to go out and get somebody right now, Rock. It's going to be in-house. Irving, Suarez will be first up, and then they're going to look down in the farm, and maybe it's time for a guy like Povich that could get an opportunity to shine here if Means' prognosis is worse off than the team's hoping for.
Again, we're playing the hypothetical game here. We're hoping for the best, knock on wood, that John Means is good to go, and he's, this is just a very, very, very minuscule setback, and he's not going on the IL. But we don't know. We just don't know the case. And with the history, I hope it's not the case that he's doing that. It's like, we want John Means healthy. We want John Means in the starting rotation. He has a strong left-handed arm in the rotation. And his changeup when it's on, it's filthy, man. I think I would go as far to say it's one of the best in baseball when he's throwing it. But we're going to hope for the best and just leave it at that. So we'll see what happens. And hopefully we have an update in the coming days and we can talk about it more on the next episode that's going to air on Monday as far as Rip and Rock goes.
All right, so now we had our injury discussion. I think it's time now to move forward. You got to go to Chicago now. You got to hop on that flight, head on to Chicago. You play the White Sox, who, it's no secret, hasn't been a great start of the season for them, sitting at 15-34. The Fighting Gavin Sheets, as I like to call them, because Gavin's one of my best friends growing up here. He's a Baltimore native as well, went to Gilman. They're welcoming the Orioles into town here, and this could be a hopefully get-right moment for this ball club, right? White Sox, they're not known as a team that's this offensive juggernaut. Their pitching has not been something that's been spectacular. They've had moments, Rock, but again, this is something, and maybe this is the perfect storm for the Orioles. You feel like you got embarrassed, you didn't play good baseball, and now you have a chance to really wipe away and wash away the mess in St. Louis for that next game. That's the thing I loved about baseball. You have no off day, you go right into it. You can wash this away really quickly.
With Chicago, just looking at them, I mean, record-wise, they have 15 wins. They're at the bottom of just baseball in general. And then you look at the run differential, minus 100. That's the worst in baseball. I think the next closest team is minus 83, and that's the Marlins in the NL East. So they're not only losing games, they are losing games pretty badly. So this is a chance for the Orioles to, have that mentality of, okay, let's start a new streak, or let's just play baseball. Let's just play. There we go.
There it is.
Free baseball. Enjoy it. Enjoy our time out there. I don't know if it felt like a weight was lifted off their shoulders when this streak ended. I don't know how guys in the clubhouse might feel about that. I mean, can you relate to that at all with any streak or any sort of thing that you might have been on personally, like that you were personally a part of, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think the big thing is right now when something ends, you acknowledge, you'd be like, hey, that was really great.
Yeah.
It was awesome. Now it's time to start a new one. Like that's the mentality. Hey, now it's time to start a new one. What's happened has happened. Great. You are proud of your accomplishment, but then you move on. And that's for good or bad. Hey, you lost 7 in a row. All right, tomorrow's a new day. You win 7 in a row. All right, how do we do it again tomorrow? And that's with what they're facing right here. And you just talked about them, the Chicago White Sox from a overall team standpoint, run differential. Offensively, we said about them not being spectacular. I was being generous with that. And again, sorry to my White Sox friends.
It's your buddy.
I
it's
love
understandable.
you. You're great.
Yeah. Sorry, Gavin.
But they are towards the bottom of the barrel in every offensive category. Average, home runs, RBIs. They are at the bottom overall with that. So when you're looking at this, a team that's struggling to score, the Orioles still, I think, have pitched very, very well overall. So again, that's an advantage for Baltimore. And then the bats for the Orioles, their batting average is middle of the pack here. They did a couple better jobs, in my mind, of manufacturing runs at times over the last few games. Gunnar obviously hitting 3-run home runs helps. The Orioles are still at the top of baseball, tied with the Yankees for most home runs in baseball. We all know that narrative. But overall, it's a really good chance to get right. And we were talking about team ERAs. Despite all this right now, the Orioles still have the 6th best ERA as a team at this moment. And if you want to take a guess where Chicago sits, it's pretty close to the bottom at 27th in the league, giving up over 4.5 runs a game.
That's like, where I was in my high school class as far as like GPA goes, towards the bottom. Didn't do too well.
I thought you were going to say you had like a 4.5 GPA, which would be like, that's great, Rock.
4.5. Never heard of those numbers before.
No.
My kill-death ratio in Call of Duty was close to like a 4.5, but I think my kill-death ratio in Call of Duty was much higher than my GPA in high school, which is sad. My buddies always made that joke. Wasn't the smartest. Still am not the smartest.
I was going to say, but I think we're all figuring that. But no one does more reportive talking than you. You do a good job of finding the notes here to make some good points once in a while. Are we missing anything that we need to talk about the series?
I think I know where this is going. Oh, are you talking about just like, I thought you were kind of alluding to the bullpen and whatnot, and just like the struggles or lack thereof, or what we want to talk about there with numbers, because we talked about that last night.
Do you want to close with that?
We can. I was just going to say, like, looking at so a lot of talk, you see the buzz about, the Orioles bullpen. It's their Achilles heel. And they've struggled and this and that. And, there have obviously been some instances. And you look at how good the Orioles are from a rotation standpoint and offensively at times. Sometimes they struggle at the bat as well. And you're like, all right, there's got to be a weakness of this team. If you want to go bullpen, fine. But we brought up the numbers and you see the reaction on social media sometimes. Mm-hmm. And it's like, people just hate this bullpen. They're like, this bullpen's brutal. We need more arms, this and that. We need more talent. And we did a deep dive last night on where the Orioles bullpen was before this game. Okay. Do you want to take a guess at where they are in ERA? Because looking at the reaction, it would seem like the Orioles are where the White Sox are. Their bullpen is where the White Sox are offensively, towards the bottom of the league.
Oh, I know where they are.
Just not the case. Okay. Go for it.
They were sitting 6th. I think they're sitting 7th right now.
Yeah. So these stats, the Orioles were top 10 in bullpen-wise. This was last night for the most part. This is via StatMuse. Looked it up, was checking it out because I was curious because you see the O's bullpen. It's like they need this, they need that. They're not that good. What do they need to build on? ERA, they were 6th. Okay. Win percentage, they were 5th. Wins, they were 6th. Losses, they were 2nd, which is a good stat, obviously.
Yep.
Saves tied for 6th. Innings pitched, 2nd fewest. Okay. Hits, 1st. Runs, 3rd. Earned runs, 3rd. Home runs tied for 7th. Walks, 5th. Hit by pitch tied for 3rd. Strikeouts, 6th. Whip tied for 4th. Strikeouts to walk ratio, 6th. Okay, that's pretty good to me.
Yep.
And I know there are people out there that are like, we need a big name. We need to bring in someone else. We're not going to win a World Series with the arms that we have. Do you agree or disagree, Rip, with that take right there? What do you think, looking at the Orioles bullpen, how would you evaluate them with the numbers I just told you? And listen, we're not just trying to cherry pick stats and look at that, but you do at times need to look at the stats and just put that towards, okay, what is the product out there on the field? Yes, the Orioles bullpen didn't do well this series necessarily, especially in the finale. Mm-hmm. They had the lead. They blew the lead, plain and simple. It's easy to get ticked off. Completely understand that. But how would you evaluate where they're at right now, man?
So to answer that question about the bullpen here, I think they've been tremendous overall. And again, it's not that I've been trying to fluff them up over this time. You know me, I'm objective with it. And when I watch the games and I've seen around Major League Baseball, I truly believe that they were doing great. And yes, have they overachieved in some cases? Probably, but that's not the issue. You got to go out there and do the best you can. Jacob Webb, I know he's had some struggles recently, but he's been great. Keegan Aiken has pitched well. Danny Coulombe, Cano, and then Craig Kimbrell, yes, we know about those few moments, but overall, very good. So when you're looking at this whole list, all you're hearing me saying is, wow, he's pitched well. He's pitched well. They have their moments, but overall, job well done. That's why their ERA and their numbers are where they're at. Now, does it mean that they are just going to stand pat at the deadline? No, it doesn't mean that at all. They're going to evaluate their bullpen once you get closer to July because just like any other team that's chasing the World Series, I think the one thing that the Orioles need to address, and we've talked about it off the air, Rock, is what are the roles for some of these pitchers going to be in late situations as you move towards the postseason, right? So like in years past, it's easy when you're able to say, here's our setup guy, here's our closer. Do the Orioles have that comfortability and do guys get hurt? We don't know.
They did last year.
Yeah.
They had that Cano, Batista 1-2 punch, both all-stars. You knew what you were getting in those late inning games.
Exactly. And then it had to change. So in that case, injuries could play a part in here, but also you're to have to evaluate, do we feel like we have that with our bullpen right now? And for the time being, the reason why you don't make moves for guys at the moment we just talked about John Means. This is knocking on wood. It's the value of players. You don't know if a trade asset is going to get hurt tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to make a substantial trade, you don't want to break down your depth. And the Orioles have some of the best depth in all of baseball when it comes on their position player side more than anything. So that's just something to monitor. So yeah, to answer it, love what the bullpen's doing, but it doesn't change that if the Orioles are in July, when they really are going to sit there and evaluate if they're going to go get an arm, because that to me is what's going to really be the situation. It's just in May, that's why we don't see a lot of trades. Like the one trade, Luis Arraez going to the Padres, this is an anomaly that the Padres made a deal. You're like, oh, wow. All right. But everyone else, big name guys or relievers, you're just not going to see that until teams have a better idea of what their roster needs to be for that final stretch of the year.
You know, fans are going to ask the question. They might ask us. They might ask other people. Can this bullpen get it done when it counts, though? Can this bullpen come through in September, October, win you a World Series? What is your gut feeling right now, Rip? I'm not trying to put you on the spot there, but it's a question I'm sure people will ask if they haven't already. Can this bullpen get it done in the postseason? Obviously, you have to get there first. Obviously, you have to take care of the regular season. But what is the confidence level there with that? Because we're looking at, okay, that's when you're going to need them the most. Obviously, you need to get there, need to get it done, you need to either win your division or clinch a wild card berth. Hopefully, the Orioles are able to do one of those, because if not, they didn't meet their expectations this season. We think and we hope, and a lot of us know they're going to get there. They're going to get it done. That is obviously barring any injuries or any big things happening on that kind of front. But with the bullpen, man, yeah. Can they get it done when it counts?
Yeah, I mean,
what is your feeling there?
I think that, yes, they can. I do. But again, I think for me, it's just every year's a different challenge. And that's why right now, I thought this Orioles bullpen has done a good job of answering the challenges. But if everyone's perception of the Orioles are going to be so good in one-run games, there was going to be some, I'm blanking on the word here. There was going to be a little bit of a decline, a regression. That's the word. The Orioles were so good at winning the close games late. Yes, they still are really good at doing that now, but last year was a ridiculous rate. So in that case, there's going to be moments where they're not going to hold on to some games. The bigger thing for me is, Rock, is their starting pitching. And I think the Orioles starting pitching is better last year, but as we saw, that's where things set the stage. When you look at Texas last year, Jordan Montgomery, when he pitched well, Evaldi, they set the tone. And I think that's what the Orioles, to me, what they will need. And then for the bullpen side, I think they have enough pieces. I do think, and it's just in my gut, I do think they will go out and get a guy at the deadline. I don't know who, I don't know what, but I do think that they are going to be in the market for a high leverage guy if it's worth the price that they're willing to pay. Because that's the other thing. You want a high leverage guy. Everyone's saying Mason Miller. You got to understand what's going to be asked for the guy that arguably, to me, is pitching better than any other reliever in all of baseball.
You know what? Looking at it, bullpen aside, because we're done with that conversation now, but looking at the streak coming to an end through this lens is what I like to see. And you know what? It's okay. Like I said, you're going to be entitled to your own opinion. That's fine. I respect it. Orioles Gatekeeper, who is a great follow on social media, just says streak was impressive. And this is from him. This is not, nothing he responded to us, but streak was impressive, but wasn't what defined this team. Still think they have a lot of good ball in them this season. Need a reset somewhere. Hope John Means is okay. Losing sucks, period. Well put. Well said.
Well put.
That's all I got to say there.
Love it.
So yeah, man. Preview the White Sox. Streak's over. Do we just about tap into everything we can?
I think we did everything. Hopefully everyone, and again, wash it away, move on. And look, we appreciate all of you. We understand the frustrations, and we understand that things are going to happen. Just like you might have a scab start bleeding through your shirt. It's life. You don't know what's going to happen, but what we do know is, how do you respond? How do you move forward? How is Rocco going to get that stain out of his shirt? Who knows?
I don't know.
I feel better about the Orioles bouncing back than I do about you figuring out that stain in your shirt.
I think the Baseball Hall of Fame would take this. I think the Broadcaster Hall of Fame would take this. It's like, I went out, I put it all on the line, I bled a little bit, blood, sweat, and tears, and here we are, man. Just got done our episode, so I wonder. I do. Yeah? Nothing?
Yeah, that was great.
Thanks.
That was really great.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Yeah, well, again, for everyone, if you're watching on YouTube, we have this also on the podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, you name it, it's available. And again, Rocco mentioned earlier in the podcast here, we're on X at Ryan Ripken, at Rocco DeSangro. He's at R DeSangro, and I'm at Ryan Ripken on Instagram. Follow us there. We are keeping up to date as the games are going on. So if you want to express your frustrations about anything Orioles related, or you just have genuine questions about what's going on, hit us up. We're responsive. We like to engage. And that's another way to follow along as we continue to do this every Monday and Thursday for you. I think that does it, Rock. Any final words?
No, I think we're probably going to open up the Rip and Rock mailbag for the first time this season to get your thoughts on just the team, everything going forward, the streak, the bullpen, because we do really value and appreciate your opinions and thoughts, and we want to talk about them. Honestly, man, it's great to hear. It's great to have that back and forth, whether we agree with each other or not. It's that being able to bounce off each other and to get those opinions out there, because we love to hear from this fan base. The voice of the birds. So, yeah, man.
All right. Well, that does it for this episode of Rip and Rock. You guys enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you next time for a brand new edition. Go Birds. The O's are fine. I promise you. You guys take care.